Welcome to She Lancer, Mom Entrepreneur with VoiceOver Angela. I'm your host, Angela. I'm a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and this podcast are the audio versions of my live Q&A chats on YouTube. If you'd like to be part of the live Q&A chats, come on over to my YouTube channel, VoiceOver Angela. I'm live every Tuesday at 12 p.m. EST. We talk about voiceover, the business of voiceover, audiobooks, and so much more. Find more information on my website, voiceoverangela.com. Enjoy today's episode. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Thank you for joining me again for the live Q&A session here on my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Angela. I am a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and my channel is dedicated to those of you just getting started out in this wonderful world of voiceover and audiobook narration. And through my channel, I share with you tips and tricks and things that I do every day in my own voiceover business, and then we get together in these weekly chats to talk about a topic or two. We'll see how it goes. Anyway. If you're not new here, then you know every week we have a new poll, and these polls and topics are usually derived from questions I get in the weeks preceding. Today's topic came from a comment directly after our last live session, which was regarding what kind of basic effects to use for voiceover, because I can recall in the beginning, and I realized the other day, just side note, that I'm like a week away from my 5-year anniversary of being full-time. Crazy how fast time flies, right? Anywho, I remember in the beginning watching all of these videos and going, okay, well, I need a noise reducer, I need an EQ, I need compression, I need a deplosive, DS, I need all of these things that everyone else is using and telling me to use. But what I did not realize is that these are all sort of basic effects that almost everyone that I've run into uses, but you don't have to use them if you don't need them. So anything we talk about today is something that you might want to look into if you need it. You may not need to go out and buy a bunch of different plugins because you may not need them. Well, how do I know if I need them? Well, if you, as I always say, join groups, get the advice of peers, right? Share your demos with people that you can trust that are like in a community type setting, peers that know, that maybe have more of an attuned ear or are more familiar with what they're looking at, you know, on their DAW, and then get some feedback. Or if you want to bypass all of the guesswork altogether, go hire an audio engineer to help you create an effects rack specifically for your space and your equipment. But everything we talk about, again, today is not necessarily something that you may need. You don't want to apply effects if you don't need them, because in essence, they're all destructive in some way, shape, or form, so you don't want to pile on effects because you'll end up sounding worse than your raw audio does. So let's run over to the poll really quick because I want to sort of get an idea of where everybody is at. So today's poll, of course, is how many effects do you use in your effects rack? And when I say effects rack, that means the suite of effects that you use on every voiceover or audiobook, or you may even have a different effects rack for different kinds of voiceover, right? So far we have 38% of you said 1 to 3, which is good. It's minimal. That means you didn't really need anything, right? Or need much. 28% of you said 4 to 6. I think I'm in the 4 to 6. It may be too much, but I like it. 16% of you said none. So that could go one of two ways. I'm thinking that you just don't use any at all and you know what the heck you're doing at this point. Or it could be that I use none because I don't know what to use. Maybe I'm wrong. But then 19% of you said, I don't know what to use. So I guess if you're in the none, could you clarify? If you just don't, or maybe perhaps you work with clients that prefer to have raw audio, so you don't do anything to it. That could be also a factor. I did see a comment in the chat about, let me just see if I can find it really quick, about where to go to find these things. And I didn't think of that beforehand. So as we go through and talk about some of the effects, I might pull up on the internet here where exactly you should go to get some of these. If your DAW, your digital audio workstation, aka your recording software, doesn't already like natively have them. There are a ton of different plugins that you can buy for different situations or problems that you're trying to fix. So just want to look at the comments really quick. A lot of you are talking about processing in general, and we can touch on that, but I wanted to focus on effects specifically. And also keep in mind that the order in which your effects are applied also affects the audio quality outcome as well. So there is method to the madness as well, as I always say. Okay, so how do I want to do this? So I think what I'm going to try to do is close out a couple of windows here and then take you over to my Adobe Audition and show you in Adobe Audition. And if you use Adobe Audition, this is going to be an easy way for you to apply these right away. Or to find out if you even need them right away. But if you use a different DAW, your DAW might have different terminology or different names or titles for these kinds of effects, but roughly similar enough that you can figure out what is what. And it might, of course, work a little bit differently, but I feel like I'm just on a tangent right now. I'm going to stop that and then just go over to my Adobe Audition. So let me see if I can do this without screwing it up. All right, so let's go over to sharing screen. Let's see, how do I go over? So I go over, I was playing with this earlier. I don't want to screw this up. So let's see if I can go over. Actually, let's do this. What is, okay. Let's go over to this one here. Okay, so now if I close this window, I'm hoping you guys can see my Adobe Audition, and I can't see any comments, so I'm hoping that you can. How do I test this to make sure that it's showing? All right, I'm going to pop back over just so I can see. Would you guys let me know if you can see my Adobe Audition? Because I played with this a little bit, but let me see. We can see. Okay, good. Okay, so let me close this back. Okay, good. All right, so I had to do it this way because that way you can actually see the little individual windows that pop up because it wouldn't let me do it the other way. Anyway, I need a second screen, ultimately, is my problem. I need a second screen. Anyway, okay, so in Adobe Audition, I have a raw piece of audio here. This is a piece of an audiobook that I was recording this morning. There's a lot of noise in it. And you can actually kind of see some of my computer noise down here. And then this is probably most of my computer noise down here. And then I also have a electrical panel that's in this room with me that I'm sure emits some sort of a low frequency hum. So I have quite a bit of noise in here, which is one of the reasons why I chose this particular microphone, the shotgun mic, because it's focused more so on what's directly in front of it versus what's around it. But anywho, so this is where you can build your effects rack for Adobe Audition, effects rack. And if you notice over on the left-hand side, you've got numbers. Now, these numbers indicate the order in which these effects are applied. And keep in mind that, as I always say, everyone has differing opinions on how to go about things, but this is my understanding and this is the way that I do it. So you're welcome to do things your way. Just giving some of you some direction. So don't come at me if you do it a different way. That's up to you. I'm just showing you how I do it. But the first thing that I typically want to focus on is removing the bad and then enhancing what's left, essentially. So the first thing I want to focus on is reducing the noise. Now, I do want to throw this part out because I have found that this particular effect can help a lot of people that have a low hum or a low frequency noise with, throughout the entire file. So this is something that I wanted to show you guys anyway, because it might just be the thing that helps you, especially if you're in audiobooks, because we have to deal with the noise floor issue, right, for that standard. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So if you have a high noise floor, but it's not like high ambient noise, it's just this low hum at the bottom here, what you can do is either come up here to the marquee selection tool and click that, or you could also just hit E on your keyboard and it'll turn your cursor into this little plus sign. And what this does is it turns it into a geometric selection tool. So you can select just about any little piece of noise that you want the system to focus on. So in this case, we're going to focus on the noise, just this low hum that's at the bottom of the file. And keep in mind that you want to select this noise where there's no dialogue, there's nothing else present but that noise. So that way you select only that noise frequency. So once you have that selected, if you go up to Effects, and then you go to Noise Reduction Restoration, Noise Reduction Process, and then you capture that noise print, it'll give you a little visual, representation of what that noise frequency is. I've already been messing with this today, so this is not like the default. The default is this threshold bar will be closer to -60. Now this bar is you're basically telling the system to what threshold do you want this noise removed. I always move it up to -20. And again, this might not be completely accurate, but this is what I do and this is what I work for, or what works for me. So do what you want to do. And then down here on these bars, you have the noise reduction. You can tell it by what percentage of this noise do you want removed. I always keep mine at, somewhere between 30 and 40%. So I think right now it's at 36%. And or reduce it by X amount of dB. So I always stick around 10, about 10 dB. Now, if this noise, let me move this over here a little bit. Now, if this noise is only present in one particular area of your audio file, like maybe you have a garbage truck that drove by in the middle of your recording, but you didn't hear it while you were recording, so you just need to remove this noise from one particular spot. So let's just pretend that this is the spot the truck was going by. You can apply this reduction to just that spot, and you can see it has removed it quite a bit. Now, if this hum, I'm going to go over to history and undo that. Now, if this hum is present through the entire file, which it is, if I zoom back out, you can see this frequency of noise is all through the entire file. I'm going to go back up to Noise Reduction Restoration, and we still have that same noise print in here. I'm going to select entire file and then apply it. And it'll reduce that frequency of noise all throughout the entire file. Very helpful. It has saved me quite a few times from having to re-record entire chapters. So just something to keep in your back pocket if you need a noise reduction tool like this. But keep in mind that your own voice has some of those same low-end frequencies. So you don't want to go too heavy on that noise reduction tool or any noise reduction tool because it will do the same to your voice. You're telling it, I want this low-end frequency gone or mostly gone, but it can't really distinguish between the noise frequency and those same frequencies that may be present in your voice. So if you go too heavy on this noise reduction tool, it'll make your voice end up sounding very tinny or hollow or just weird. So don't ever go too heavy on any noise reducer. But I wanted to share that with you because that's a great tool. Anyway, okay, so back to the effects rack. Now, so noise is the first thing that we want to reduce. So in the first slot here, I'm going to go to noise reduction restoration. Denoise, I find, is one of the most gentle noise reducers that's native to Adobe Audition. And Adobe Audition also has tons of presets. I know some other DAWs do as well, but whichever preset you choose for noise reduction, always start on the lighter end for the same reasons I just explained. You don't want to go too heavy on any noise reducers because it will just make you sound weird, right? Hollow. So start with a light noise reduction. If you want to adjust the processing focus, you can. If you hover over each of these, it'll tell you what the focus is. So for instance, this line is to focus on noise from all frequencies, or just lower, just mid, lower and higher, and just higher frequencies. So most of the time, our noise for voiceover and audiobook narration, we want the focus to be on the lower end because, again, noise floor, right? So I'm going to tell it to focus on low end, and it starts you out at a 20% reduction, which I think is fine just to test. We're going to test these and see how they work, right? So I'm going to leave it at 20%. Close out of the window. It stays over here in the rack as you just set it, so don't worry about that. In the second slot, I'm going to, let's see, what else can we look at? How about oh, I know. Here's where we can get into some isotope. Now, if you go to, if you can see it there at the bottom, izotope.com is where you can find some of the best plugins I have ever worked with. Now, you're looking for the RX. I think it's even up to RX 11 now. I just haven't upgraded yet. But the RX Audio Repair suite of plugins. Now, there's 3 different options for these. Once you go to the website, you'll see that there's an Elements package, the Standard package, and the Advanced package. I have the Advanced package, so I have all of them. But the best ones in these packages, I should say, hang on, I want to get ahead of myself. The one I use the most is the Mouth Declick, which is this one here. And this one will target the organic sticky mouth noises that we all hate, love to hate. Now, there are some Declick plugins that I have found most people that use them are satisfied with, but I have found the best result for removing those mouth noises is the Mouth Declick plugin. And this plugin is only available in the Standard and the Advanced package. Is this particular plugin worth the upgrade to the Standard or Advanced package? 2,000%. This singular plugin has saved me hours upon hours upon hours of editing time trying to remove individual mouth clicks. Now, let's just select this so it's open. The default for sensitivity is, I think, fine. I have moved my click widening up to, I think, 2.4. But the great thing about Adobe, if you have this, and I think some other DAWs do this as well, is that you can hear, if you select a section of what you're trying to repair with your effects, you can hear it in real time, the difference that each plugin or effect is making to your audio file. So as you're playing with this slider and playing this audio piece, you can hear the difference of how much or how little the effect is removing or repairing. So that's a nice feature. So let's move this back down to 2.4. Now, just to show you, I do have some mouth noise in here. You can see it, these like icicle looking things. Because you know me and my coffee, it just makes for sticky mouth. And you can't remove the coffee out of my dead cold hands. So There's a ton of mouth noise in here. And if I wanted to, I could, with the healing brush tool, I could heal these out individually. But as you know, that takes a lot of time. So just using the Mouth Declick plugin will save me a whole lot of time in doing that. So the next one that I recommend is maybe a deplosive, but really you could, here it is right here, deplosive. But really a great way of reducing plosives altogether and not having to put an effect on your audio quality is to make sure that your mic is properly placed, right? You could probably hear some plosives from me now because I'm facing the microphone a little bit more than I would be if I was recording. If your microphone is directly in front of your mouth, even with a pop filter, you're going to have some of that those little puffs of air that come out when you're doing, P's, D's, T's, right? There's a little bit of air that comes out with that. And that's going directly into your microphone, causing a plosive. So if your microphone is just off to the side of your mouth, it's pointed at your mouth, but it's not directly in front of it, that air, when you make those sounds, is going past the microphone and not into it. So therefore, reducing the plosive. I still use a pop filter because as I'm going, sometimes I might get a little bit, the plosives are going to come out. So I have one just in case, but that is a great way to reduce plosives without having to use a plugin. But if you need one, you could get a deplosive plugin. So let's just close that. And let's just say that's all that I needed in terms of the bad, right? So the next thing I'm going to apply, and again, test your audio with any combination of these and see how it sounds the best, and get feedback from your peers on maybe two different, variances. Here's version 1, here's version 2. Which one sounds better to you? Just make sure that you're taking notes of which effects or plugins that you're using and what settings each of those is at for each version. So that way you can go back and recreate that sound, right? Don't rely on your memory because it'll fail you, especially with all the information here. Yes, from experience. Okay, so for Adobe Audition, there's a parametric equalizer, which I really like. It has a vocal enhancer plugin, preset, which I find works for most people. You can tweak these little nuggets here. And basically, the left side is your low-end frequencies, the middle is your mids, and the right are your highs. So as you're playing this back, you can adjust these to have it sound more warm, more bright, and this high pass, this HP here, can also help you to reduce low-end frequency noise even further. So this is a great EQ rack effect that I recommend to most people who have Adobe Audition. So I'm going to leave it like that. And then I think the last thing I'm going to add is a compressor. For Adobe Audition, there is a multi-band compressor, which is, I have found, a little bit complicated for most people just coming into this. So just to make it simple, let's go single band. And there's also a voiceover preset. So we'll just start with that. And what a compressor does, especially with audiobooks, this is, I guess with any voiceover, but maybe mainly audiobooks. The compressor is essentially going to bring these low-end frequencies of your voice and where's another one? Maybe the higher end frequencies here of your voice, like the volumes. So we got low and high. It's going to bring them a little bit closer in volume value. So that will help with your RMS if you're an audiobook narrator, because your RMS is essentially, just to make it easy, like the average volume of dialogue or of the dialogue, right? So a compressor is going to bring those values of those volume a little bit closer. You'll see. All right, so before we apply these racks, let's just take a look at this file visually, right? We can see some of the ambient noise. We can see the mouth noise. We can see there are some high peaks and some low lows. So let's apply this and see what kind of a difference it makes. There's still a little bit of noise here. I think I was rustling or doing something here that, moving around a little bit. So that's not really typically something you'd see. But what I'm looking at is where I wasn't moving. It's just the ambient sound of the room. Let's play this and see where that is. Of course, let me move this out of the way. Okay, so that's just under negative 60-ish. It's like negative 62 dB. And that's before normalization, so that's not too bad. But the mouth noise we were looking at earlier, whoa. Sorry, I got a little crazy with the zoom. But the mouth noise we were looking at earlier is mostly gone, right? And that will also remove the mouth noise from within the dialogue as well. I don't really see any. I see a couple of little errant ones here and there, but nothing that's probably really going to stand out to the listener, right? It's going to bug me, but not really the listener. So that's going to save a ton of editing time in and of itself. So I'm trying to think, is there anything else? Oh, after you apply your effects rack and you're happy with it, the last step you're going to do, the last thing I do in terms of audio quality, is to normalize to negative 3 dB. Now you can find that in favorites, right? You have normalized to negative 3 dB. And what that's going to do is sort of like the compressor. It's going to bring those volume averages of your peaks a little bit closer again, but then also increase the volume up to negative 3 dB, which again for audiobooks is helpful to get to that just under negative 3 peak for the volume. I have it on a hotkey, so I'm just going to apply that really quick. So I recommend doing this as part of your effects rack test because you want to see what the end result is going to be, right, for your effects rack. So not even looking at this stuff over here, but right here where it's mainly quiet, I want to test that volume. So it's a little bit higher than negative 60. It's more like, negative 53, which as we know is too high for ACX. So what I would do in this instance is go to history and go back and undo normalization. Always undo the normalization before you tweak the effects rack and reapply and test again, because you're just going to be screwing yourself up, right? So undo the normalization. I'm going to undo the effects rack and go back to where it appears here again. And then I'm going to go back into denoise and edit it. And then I'm going to crank this up to maybe 40%, right? Or maybe tell it to maybe even go heavy on the noise reduction. Actually, no, that's probably a little bit too much. Let's go back to light and just move it up to maybe 40 something. And this is the process. Go back to lower end frequencies. And this is the process of what I mean when I say trial and error with your effects rack. But doing this process of tweaking the effects and then applying it and then checking it and then, going back and tweaking it again until it's right. And then having a rack preset that you can use on every voiceover, on every audiobook. You can just save it and apply it, right? Apply it to every file that you do is going to save you so much time on everything you do going forward for however long you want to do this, right? And then once you have the trial and error stage is done, you're happy with the end result. You've found a rack that works for you. The configurations of everything works for you. You've normalized it to negative 3. You've tested it. It sounds great. It passes noise floor standard for ACX. Once you have a rack that works for you, then you're going to come up to this in Adobe Audition. You're going to come up to this little button here, Save Effects Rack as a preset. And then you're going to name it whatever you want to name it. Angela's Awesome Rack or Angela's, audiobook, whatever, or whatever your name is, or Effects Rack 1, whatever you want to name it, right? And then once you save that, it'll be in your preset list. And I have several. I do a lot of like AI computer characters. So I have an AI computer, effects rack that makes me sound like a like a robot, right? I have one for affirmations that's got like a slight whispery echo. You can build as many different effects racks as you want in Adobe Audition. I think. I haven't been limited yet, and I've got quite a few. So that's pretty much it. There may be some outliers as far as specific plugins or effects that may help your specific situation, but I have found, working with all of the people that I've worked with over the last 5 years now, these are the ones that are the most helpful for most everyone in the beginning. Yours may need a little bit more tweaking than mine did here. You may not even need a denoise. You may not even need a deplosive. You may not even need the mouth declick. Remember, don't use an effect if you don't need it, right? All right, so I'm going to try to go back to just us here. And of course, it didn't work, so I had to do it manually. Okay, so if you guys have any questions about what I just showed you, then please put them in the comments. Again, the website for, actually, let me pull that up because there's more than one. If you're familiar with Sweetwater, Sweetwater is a great company to get audio gear, right? Like a microphone, headphones. You can even buy plugins from Sweetwater. They have great staff there, and their salespeople are just phenomenal. So sweetwater.com is a great place to go. And then you also have, let me just pull it up here so I can show you. So if you go to, let me stop that screen share and then go to this screen. Where? How come it's not showing? Oh, because I'm on hold on. I need another screen. Okay, so we're going to share this one and then share this one. Hopefully it's showing you guys. No. Can you see it? I'm hoping you can see it. Maybe not. Anywho, forget it. So iZotope.com. Actually, I think I have it on a banner. No, I don't. I'm so ill-prepared. Forgive me. But iZotope.com is where you can go to get those awesome suite of plugins that we just talked about. Then you can also go to Waves.com. Waves.com, you can buy individual plugins, and they have sales. Both these places have sales all the time for buying either on iZotope a suite of plugins, or on Waves you could buy a singular plugin, or packages. They usually do like BOGOs, buy one get one free, or buy one get one half off, or buy two get two free, that sort of thing. So Waves.com and iZotope.com. I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anything. But those are I would say, the basic effects that I see most people need or use. So I hope that helped. But let's go over to the comments and see how many questions you guys have about what I just tried to show you. Okay. Scrolling. A lot of comments. We got a lot of comments to get through. I think Dwight was here early. Hey, Dwight. Dwight says, good morning, Angela, my fellow Angelistas. May you have a terrific recording space with a low noise floor and high quality auditions. Love you all, my friends. And then Chris was here. How you doing, Chris? Chris says, I'm weird. I create effects racks for each recording individually. I don't use the same one twice. I also create racks for each character voice, so I'm weird. I wouldn't say that's too weird, because you could create racks for different character voices if you're trying to do specific things with the character voices. I think I would say there are some outliers here, and you're one of them. You and Caesar are definitely two outliers to the norm, right? You guys are a little bit more technically inclined than the most of us are, so I wouldn't say it's weird. It's just what you prefer to do. But I think the most of us, having a rack that works, that universally works for most voiceover and most audiobook, is going to save you so much time and be such a benefit to you. I think what you do is what works for you, right? So I wouldn't say that that's weird, because that's ultimately what it's about. Just do what works for you, right? Caesar's here. Hey, Caesar. Oh, hi, Angela. My effects rack are very purposeful, top to bottom. I clean, then control dynamics, then I color the signal. Then it's off to mastering. Let's see. It was a question to Caesar, and then Caesar, because we have so many comments, I'm gonna skip past the questions to two different people in the chat and just go to the questions or comments directed at me. Caesar says, although that makes 12 to 14 plugins, that's a lot of plugins. Including meters to measure input and output levels, many of my plugins model analog hardware and provide tone and saturation controls. Again, Caesar's a little bit more technically inclined than most of us. That said, hello everyone. Almost done with my backlog. May take a one-day break to avoid burnout. I think that's smart. Then it's back to the grind. By the way, speaking of effects, Plugin Alliance has some great sales this week. That's a new one. I have not heard of Plugin Alliance. So if Caesar's using it and is familiar with it, then I would say that that's probably a good indicator that we should probably check it out. Paul is here. Howdy. Paul in Arkansas. How you doing, Paul? Donnie. Hey, Donnie. Good morning, everyone. A bit rainy today, but it looks like winter is done. I don't think we got like a little spittle of rain, I think, once. We don't get much rain in the desert. Mostly monsoon rain. Paul Landrigan says, 1, gentle noise reduction. 2, RX11 mouth declick. That's my favorite. 3, expansion. At 2-to-1 threshold, -50 to reduce a breath noise and lower noise floor. And just because Paul brought up breath, only remove a breath. We're talking audiobooks now. Don't focus on removing all of the breaths throughout the audiobook files. Maybe the big ones, if it was a run-on sentence or you just need to get a good gush of oxygen to the brain and you take a big, deep breath. Or maybe if there's like a weird throat fart or gurgle or something in it that makes the breath sound off-putting, get rid of that. But don't spend all of your editing time taking out or adjusting the volume of every single breath in the audio file, because I can guarantee you the listener is more focused on the story and not your breathing. I think most of us at this point in our lives realize that humans breathe. And we are a human narrator. Therefore, we breathe, right? So don't focus on taking all the breaths out. That just makes it sound artificial and weird. Don't focus too much on breaths. 4, compress, 2-to-1 threshold, -15, normalize to -3 dB. This works for MySpace, my voice, yours. Wait, hang on. This works for MySpace, my voice. Yours will be different. Yes, I don't know anyone that has exactly the same effects rack, than other people do. Pamela says, good morning, lurking today. Good week all. Good week to you, Pam. Speak English with Lorna says, good morning, everyone, from stormy Oregon. Send some of those storms our way. We could probably use it. Jim says, good morning from thawing out Memphis. Carlos is here. Hey, Carlos. Good morning. Good afternoon, all. Coach Ariel says, good morning, and thank you, Angela, for all your wisdom. I get stuck on use effects or don't so much advise. There's so much advice out there. I've got declick, DS, etc., but heard sometimes AI overcorrects. That's another one. That's another plugin that I tend to hear used a lot is a DS. Now, the DS effect is for sibilance. And sibilance is what you get from the S, C, like some of the sharper consonants where you get that S snaky sound. Now the DS will reduce, or you can tell it to reduce some of the S sounds. But again, don't go too heavy on it because it will have a weird sounding adverse effect if you go way too heavy on it. If you have to, you may need to adjust how far or where, again, mic placement, where the mic is to help reduce some of that sibilance. But if you just can't get past it, then use a DS effect. In terms of the AI correction, I have to say in my experience, yes, anything AI is not going to be perfect. There is no perfect. Everyone's situation is a little bit different. I think our AI helpers are helpful, but I don't think that they are the end all be all. I think they are a good starting point for whatever suggestions they give you. If you have like an AI assistant kind of a thing on your DAW that maybe says, "Hey, can I help you fix this?" I think it's a good starting point, perhaps, but you might want to tweak it a little bit. But in my experience, I have found that it's usually too much or not enough, right? So I think it still needs a little bit of human intervention, a little bit of a human touch, perhaps. Caretaker Saxon says, looking forward to getting a shopping list of things to pick up. I hope that helped. And it might even be most of the effects that I used were native to Adobe Audition. There was only some isotope ones in there for the mouth declick and the deplosive. I love the RX11 suite of plugins. I do too. I need to upgrade. I have RX10, but they're still pretty good. I mean, it ain't broke, so I don't need to fix it. Caretaker Saxon says, so far close as I've gotten to effects is noise reduction and then amplification so I can reach volume requirements. Oh, that was something else I was going to mention too. I have found that while you're recording, if you open up just a blank new file and start recording and then watch the volume meter as you're talking, your raw volume should fall somewhere between, where do these fall? Right around -15, -12 for the raw recording before you apply any effects. And I think that's a good starting point. So if yours are lower or higher, then you either need to move the microphone a little bit closer or a little bit further away. Or if you have an interface that you can adjust the gain, the input gain on, you can turn that up or down. I did that totally backwards, up or down, depending on which way you need to go, until your raw input volume lands around -15, -12. And then from there, you should be able to get at least close enough to RMS with just minimal tweaking. And again, everything I say is going to be a little bit different in your situation, as all of our equipment spaces, everything's going to be a little bit different, so a little bit of tweaking. But if it falls between -15, -12, that's usually a really good starting point for raw input volume. I hope that helps. Anne says, hey Anne, a quick hello to all my VO friends. I've got a deadline for uploads for 2 projects this week, so heading back to my DAW. Atta girl. Shaq says, normalize, noise reduction, remove, click, pop sound. And that's typically, I think, what most of us need. There might be a couple of, specialized plugins that you need for specific things, but that's generally what we need. Just a little bit of noise reduction to remove any kind of mouth noise if you have it, and then an EQ to enhance the sound of your voice, and then normalize to -3 dB. That's, mostly what most of us need. Yep, 5 years. It's crazy. I was in the car this weekend, and it just like popped into my head. I was like, oh my God. March 1st will be 5 years full time. Crazy. Becca said, hello all, still learning my DAW and what I need for me. David said hello from Hamilton, Ontario. Jim says, once the production is in the DAW, I start out by doing noise reduction and multiple times. So you add noise reduction multiple times. Sounds like we either need to go a little bit higher on the noise reduction as far as like the percentage or like the value of how much it removes, or figure out where the noise is coming from and remove that if you're having to do it multiple times. It's better to find the root cause of the problem instead of throwing effects at it, right? Because again, all the effects are a little bit destructive in their own right. So you don't want to have to apply effects or too much of them if you don't have to. So if you have noise in your space that you're trying to reduce with effects, figure out where the noise is coming from. And most of the time it's your computer. It's the computer you're using to run everything is making the noise. If you can, move it away from your microphone as much as possible. My computer tower is outside this room to reduce the sound that it makes. Or it could be a ceiling fan or some sort of a like a vent fan that's causing a noise. Or it could be maybe the refrigerator on the other side of the wall, right? It could be something we're not thinking of that's being picked up by the microphone in addition to our voices. So if you can move rooms, perhaps, try to figure out where the noise is coming from and move away from it or move it away as much as possible. Carlos says, I agree. I think they are space equipment dependent. They are. That is probably one of the harder things to address in trying to help people get their voiceovers sounding as good as they could. Is there's just too many darn variables. There's no like, do this, 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 and this, right? You can do this, 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 and this, but it may not have the same result for you as it does for me or someone else or someone else. There's just too many variables in space, size, and shape, the equipment we choose to use, our own voices, how we sit, where we sit. There's too many variables. Carlito says, I'm still trying to understand EQ. In what manner exactly? Like, how to adjust it for your space and voice. If that's the case, then I would say if you're in a group or, a mastermind, a workshop like mine, a Facebook group that allows you to share demos, do that and get some feedback, or hire an audio engineer to help you with that. Eric Grimes says, hi, Angela and all. Honestly, I don't know if I use effects or not. My system got set up through coaching. I know after editing, I run a preset that includes de-essing, normalizing, and other things. So it sounds like you use effects. If you have de-essing and a few other things, then you definitely have effects. Kristen says, hi, everyone. So happy to be here live. Welcome. Just starting to figure out, kind of, some effects. Have a lot to learn. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's good to be curious, open, eager to learn these new things because they'll only help you in the long run, just to learn it all yourself. And it takes time. So welcome. Have fun. Enjoy the journey is what I meant to say. Jim says, if I think my voice is too bassy, I will go into the parametric equalizer where I throw in the high pass filter and bring up the pitch. Honestly, I found adjusting all of these different effects, particularly the EQ, I think, was fun to hear all the different. You can throw in some phasers and do all kinds of fun stuff in Adobe Audition to see how your voice sounds. It's fun if you have a couple extra minutes to play with it. KJC says, good morning, everyone. I'm so new that I haven't set up anything yet. I have a borrowed, no brand name mic. Is there a free recording platform that I can try before investing in booth, etc.? Yes, it's kind of a catch-22 question. There is Audacity that is free to use and download. And it's pretty good. They keep adding new features to it, and it has some decent effects natively within it. And again, it's free to download and use. But in order to get the best quality, to see if this is something that you could see yourself doing and see if you could be successful at it, is to go all in. There really isn't a way to dip a toe in to see if you like it. Unfortunately, I know I've said that before, but in reality, you don't have to have a fancy mic but if you can at least focus on a dedicated recording space, because your space is more important than your microphone. And to have your space dialed in where there isn't any echo, that your mic is properly placed, and then invest perhaps some time in understanding how effects work and which ones to apply to make you sound your best and to meet ACX's standards if you're an audiobook narrator. You have to invest that kind of time to get to the best quality that you can produce to see if this is something that you can do, right? So to answer the question, Audacity is a great recording software to use to get started with. Lisa says, good morning. I put in the poll that I use none because I have no idea how to set up effects. Well, I hope what I just showed you helped. Despair of the Endless. I like that username. Having trouble with the dB levels, but I think I might have fixed it. Good. ACX just told me no issues with my latest sample I sent. Yay! That's fantastic. Hello. Lorna says, computer died when I got my laptop construction happening. So for now, using Canva to record, so no effects. Oh, no. I definitely wouldn't do that. For like auditions or like a book or... Oh, no, I definitely wouldn't do that. Especially if you're in the middle of an audiobook or something. I mean, not for you specifically, Lorna, but for anybody in a similar situation. You gotta wait until you can get it back to sounding at least close to what it sounded like before, right? I know it stinks to put clients on hold, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Jim says, recording software hardware is one stage, DAW is the next. Well, your recording software is your DAW, so I'm not sure what you mean, Jim. Lisa says, I need to figure out how to make my voice sound like a robot computer voice. I'm not sure how to do it in Audacity, but if there are, I'm sure Caesar has answered this question below, but if there are like phasers or reverb or anything like that, I would play with those to give you a little bit of a computer voice. That's what I used in mine. Kristen says, just purchased the iZotope RX11 standard software. Now I need to figure out how to use it, but excited to hopefully improve my sound. When in doubt, fire up YouTube. There's got to be a video somewhere about how to use, upload, ARM effects in your particular DAW. Lorna says, computer died, construction happening. Oh, it was kind of a repeat. Okay, good. Jim says, what is the lower screen and what do you use it for? That is the spectral display, if I'm understanding the question. Let me see if I can show you really quick, because there was actually a question about this the other day about how to get to the spectral display. So let me just show you that really quick. Okay, so most of you, when you get Audition, it looks like this with just the waveform, right? And if you come up to these buttons in the top left, you can click it to show the spectral frequency display, or just the waveform, right? So I have the spectral display clicked. If that doesn't show your spectral down here, it probably looks like this. So you would come to this little button down here and just drag it up with your mouse to show you the spectral display. Now, if I zoom in here a little bit, looking at the waveform up here, if I bring this back down, you can't really see mouth noise. You can't see breaths. You can't see, the shuffling noises that we discussed earlier in this file. You can't really see any of that, right? You don't really know it's there. Seeing the spectral display will show you all of that. So you can sort of, just by looking, you can see where there is mouth noise. You can see, if I go back to the beginning here, you can see where I was sort of shuffling around and making noise, like this is some sort of a shuffle noise. That's mouth noise, right? There's mouth noise here and here. If I had taken a breath, this is sort of like a breath here. a very light one. But you can see all of that stuff. So you can kind of target what you need to fix, remove, reduce, so on. So the spectral is very helpful for that. So let me go back to the comments here. Jim says, I use Audition exclusively. Good. Carlos says, I'm a Studio One fan. Despair of the Endless says, I am liking Audacity so far. I was on GarageBand, but people were advising me against using GarageBand. I'm a first-time narrator. Yeah, I do the same. I mean, it's up to you. As long as your DAW does what you need it to do, doesn't really matter which one you use. But generally, you'll hear that narrators will be using Audacity, Audition, or Reaper, or even Studio One. I hear those the most as DAW choices. Let's see. These are all questions and comments to each other. Jim says, do you think it could help with occasional spikes? Sometimes I can't get rid of them because I can't nail down the spike. You mean spikes in the volume of your voice and the dialogue itself? It's not a big deal unless it's throwing off your RMS or throwing off the peak volume if we're talking like ACX standards. Otherwise, it's a non-issue. As long as it's not blowing out somebody's eardrums, if it's not an audiobook, then, don't worry about it too much. Don't overthink it. Alex says, sneaking in late, getting donuts made later, but rules are rules. Yes, donuts are necessary if you're late. Yes. Let's see. Jim says, yeah, Jim left the Platinum group, but he'll be back. He'll be back at some point, right, Jim? Christine said, I want you to give up on the dream. It sounds like you haven't, so. Christine says, howdy do. Dylan says, hi all. I use 4 to 6, but it's about to change because my studio is almost done. CPU will be outside. 6'6" or 6-inch thick acoustic panels and 4 bass traps with foam everywhere else. Yay, new studio day. Becca Sue says, every time I hear D-Noise, I think of D-Nice from Key and Peele skit. Craig says, glad to make your session. I use light noise reduction because my studio is good and may add a tweak of bass or treble depending on my voice that day. Yeah, and you might even need to tweak your effects rack a little bit depending on, if it's a little extra noisy outside or maybe your voice just doesn't have the fullness for whatever reason. You can adjust it a little bit from day to day if you need to, but Dwight says, FYI gang, this micro lesson that Angela is training you on is worth watching and rewatching over and over. Seriously, pay attention. Money. Thank you, Dwight. Dylan says, thanks, Dwight. It's been a long time coming, but it'll be worth the wait. Khan says, am an Apollo UAD fan. Oh, yes, those are great. Yeah, those are great interfaces. Isotope declick, AU pop click eliminator, normalize plus deliver. I hope that works. I mean, if it works for you, then it works, right? As long as your clients aren't complaining. Dwight says to me, wait until you update your RX10 to RX11. It's a huge difference. RX11 mouth noise is unbelievable. You are professional. It's a cost of doing business. Do it. You'll thank me. I'll get around to it. Jim says, for speaking at a slight angle to the mic, you have an amazing clarity in your speech. And remember, it doesn't look like it, but it is pointed at my mouth. So it's picking up more of my voice than anything else. So, but if I speak directly into it, I'm going to get a lot more sibilants and a lot more plosives going on. So it's the same sort of idea. It's just a matter of where it is, in front of your mouth. If you don't get the same sound that I do, then consider moving it a little bit closer, perhaps. Jim says tweaking the little parts is called rubber banding. Raise RMS by normalizing to -3. I mean, you should always be normalizing to -3. Everything you do, normalize to -3. Last step every time. Lorna says, great tip for the plosives. I put a nylon over the mic when doing tongue twisters too. I'm glad you brought that up, because if you don't have a pop filter for your microphone, they usually see like the big circular ones that sit right in front of the mic. You could take a coat hanger, like one of those old wire hangers, form it into a circle or some kind of a shape, and put like old pantyhose or a sock over it and put it in front of the mic, attach it some way. Same thing. It just catches and diffuses the air that comes out of your mouth when you make these sounds. So, same idea. Rustic Hillbilly says, good morning, Angela and all. Jim says, I always have a screen in front of the mic to keep moisture off the mic element. Over time, moisture will kill the mic. Carlito says, I know, I need a de-esser sooner than later. Jim says, where can I find a good explainer for the denoiser effect? I think I just gave a pretty good one. But if you need more, then YouTube. Seriously, just punch in whatever DAW you use. If it's Adobe Audition, just punch in Adobe Audition denoise. And you'll be given tons of recommendations to watch. Khan says, too much of noise reduction was not suggested by my coach, as this also takes away your vocal data. True. Yes. I would not go too heavy on it. I would always say with whatever effect you're using, always start on the lighter end and then increase as needed, if needed. But too much noise reducer will do more harm than good. Tycon Delar, I haven't seen you in a while. Hi, Angela. Tim Tippett set up my audio chain, and it was worth every penny. Same. Tim Tippett's. Highly recommend. Audio engineer. Voiceover. Coach. I did the math and figured I could skip the next 10 pizza deliveries and spend on audio chain instead. Dwight says, the music is just for me right now. I have not played steady in over 5 years because of severe pain in my left hand. Must be something you were having conversation with earlier. Caesar says, I'm not familiar with this Sweetwater. Yes, you do. I'm sure you've got probably a couple sales guys in your back pocket. Jim says Sweetwater has a better price than B&H, I found. I have also used B&H. What did I use? Oh, I think I got this pop filter from them. I couldn't tell you exactly what it was called, but most of my studio, I'd say half of it is from Amazon and the other half is from Sweetwater. Like the desk that I use, this was from Sweetwater. Interface Sweetwater. I mean, half of what's in here is Sweetwater. Carol's a big Sweetwater fan. Dwight says, I am starting the music so I can add my own music to my VO endeavors. Jim says, a problem in audio is the cumulative effect of multiple audio tracks. Yeah, when you're working with multiple audio tracks, I would focus on adjusting the effects of one at a time, and then listening to all of them together to see how they interact with each other. Dylan says, I was going to make a joke when you... Yeah, I figured one of you, either you or Caesar, would say something. Dwight says, to me, you should just get 2 wide curved screens, one on top of the other. Your workflow would improve greatly. I know, I've been saying it for too long. I just need to do it. Alex says, I will definitely be reviewing this video again later, both for your walkthrough and the comments. Too much great information. Jim says, Caesar is very helpful with his comments, by the way. Everybody's saying this was helpful. Good. Good. Jim says, the timing of the reading is meant to allow the time used by breath. Jim says, I stay 5 to 6 inches off the split filter so as to keep S's out. Diane says, I tuned in a little late. Living on Oahu. How do you pronounce that? I brought malasadas, like a donut with no hole, usually dipped in cinnamon. Chocolate custard. You can bring those. That's fine. It sounds amazing. A little bit of a sweet tooth, and they'll sound amazing. Steve says, I have had a few times where my files get rejected for having too little noise. I'm hardly using the NS1 plugin. I have it at 10. There's a good chance you might not need it at all. If you're only using it at 10, the NS1 plugin, and specifically, if you have it at 10, and ACX is telling you that there's too little noise, you might not need a noise reducer at all. Or crank it down to 3 if you have to. Right? You might be one of those rare people that don't need any noise reducers at all. Lucky. Jim says, Dwight Dagenhart, I work in video and I know how much audio levels have to be kept in check. All right. Caesar says, oh yes, to explain why I have lots of plugins. Many are duplicates. EQ before and after compression, DS before mastering, very light DS during mastering, compress peaks, then compress overall. You do a lot. You do a lot, Caesar. Dwight says, talking mic moisture, not only do you need to watch it by using a pop filter, but it's good to store your mics in a space that moisture controlled when not in use if you have high humidity area. Caesar says, oh, I understand EQ. Yeah, you do. Dwight says to me, congratulations on 5 years full-time in VO. You are an inspiration. Stop. People do not know just how much of an accomplishment that is, especially at your level. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Dwight. Lisa says, you got to click it first so you guys can see it. Misspoke. I guess I do use effects. Don't de-esser, declick, normalization, etc. Didn't realize these were my effects. Lisa Effects. Lisa Effects. Nice to meet you, Lisa Effects. I couldn't even tell you how many times that I've been like talking about something that I didn't have, but I had it and I just didn't know that's what it was called. So don't feel bad. It happens to all of us. Dwight says, when setting effects and effects racks, it is good to set it up and then revisit it a bit later to validate what is what you want. Reasoning is your ears get tired and the sounds blend. Yes. If you're in the trial and error stage of tweaking effects racks and things, and then everything's starting to sound similar, save what you're doing, make any notes you need to make, come back to it later. Right, with fresh ears. Take a break. Jim says, I used Audacity until I found that it will not save in WAV. Thus the move to Audition, which I have in my Adobe CC package. Bizarre B says, I started out with Audacity because free, used it for a while. I just recently switched to Reaper, and it's honestly the best decision ever. And using those isotope plugins are an actual time lifesaver. Agreed. Agreed. I used some plugins from Waves for a long time, but once the isotope plugins were brought to my attention, such time savers for sure. Jim says, I saved to a Zoom H5 recorder, then move the SD card over to the computer and bring it up in Audition. It sounds like you just need a microphone and an interface, and that way you don't have to do all that extra work, Jim. Audacity does export to WAV. It'll export to whatever file. I didn't want to bring that up earlier. But it does. Audacity will export to whatever file format you want it to. You just have to export it and choose what you want to export it to. What's unfortunate about Audacity is that it uses macros in lieu of recallable effects chains, which makes it less intuitive in comparison to other DAWs like Audition. Dylan says he's bougie. I had Caesar set up my effects rack because he knows exponentially more than me, and would rather let a professional like him take care of it while I worry about my performance. Know enough to know when you don't know enough. Saxon says that makes me sad that my computer can't handle Audition, so I'm stuck with Audacity until I can upgrade my computer. I think when I started, my laptop had 8 gigs of RAM and it ran Audition fine. So if you have less than that, is that the issue? That it won't handle Audition? Jim says, so how to edit? It's the same way you edit in any other. You can just see more. It's the same thing. Dwight says, I'm bougie too, my brother in arms. Caesar did my current effects racks in both my Apollo, analog, and Audition, all other effects. Lorna says, no audiobooks now, using it to record short learning videos and auto noise controls. Maddie says, if I get a preset made by an audio engineer and I add a blanket on a wall, should I be getting a new preset? I would think that if I'm adding a bit of treatment that I wouldn't need to change a preset. I would say if it's a major change, get your preset tweaked. And a major change would be moving into a new space, getting a new microphone. Making a small little adjustment by throwing a blanket on the wall might not necessitate a complete, revisit with your audio engineer. You could even ask them that question. Just send them a quick email. Hey, I put a blanket up on this wall. What do you think? Right? I would say no unless it's a major change. Lorna says, I can import the audio into Audacity needed after recording in Canva. Oh, okay. I gotcha. So why not just record in Audacity then? If you have Audacity, why not just record in Audacity? Dwight says, do golden Oreos count in place of don't? Yes. Yep, I'll take golden Oreos. Jim says, most of the time, one hit on denoise is enough, but sometimes a few more times helps. Okay, so it's like a circumstantial thing. Jim says, I see how it sits aimed at your mouth. The microphone. No, Caesar. No, Dylan. Maddie says, thanks, Caesar. Jim says, the magic of normalizing is that it keeps the sound confined to the level you set it to. Nothing will exceed that level. Steve says, ever get a file rejected for having too little noise? Me personally, no, but I have heard of a lot of people who have, and that's mainly because they're either adding too much of a noise reducer or they're using silence instead of room tone to adjust lengths of time or, to paste in over big breaths or something. Never use silence for those of you that are new. Never use silence for audiobooks. Like if you're trying to add in a little bit of a pause or cover a big breath or something with some space, use room tone. Do not use silence, because it sounds unnatural to the ear, and ACX more often than not will say, hey, you can't do that. And you'll just be time wasted to have to go back and potentially re-record the whole book. Or paste in room tone, which would probably be easier. But me personally, no. Peak Parable says, knowing that each effect is individual to voice and space, what order do your effects and how much does order play into it as decrackle and de-ess first? Yes, the order in which your effects are applied do matter. And what I mentioned earlier about removing the bad and then enhancing the good that's left basically is how I apply them. So if you think about if you have noise, put that in first. If you have plosives or sibilants, put those in next, right? Those are bad. And then after that, any EQ, compressor, and then normalizing to -3. Dwight says, I have a question for you all. If Caesar were to produce an explainer video of effects of any technical topics, would you be interested in buying it? Just curious, no pressure, Caesar. It's kind of what I just did, right? Caesar says, that is a Hook Studios Octo. Of course you would know. 842S, and yes, B&H supplies it. Wish they had the triple filter version, but that's harder to find and likely no longer in production, which is unfortunate. Jim's talking about beignets. I'm not even going to look at that because I'm hungry. Dwight says, FYI, Gear Junkie, Sweetwater has a Rode NT1 Signature Series on sale for $159. Jim says, Caesar, I honestly do not know what I need compression for. Oh, Lorraine Humphrey says, hi, Angie, you look beautiful. Thank you. I appreciate you. Caesar says, the current version of Audition 2025 has increased the system requirements due to the implementation of AI-based functions. Installing an older version should function on lower spec systems. Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. So maybe he's trying to use the most current, most information-heavy version of Audition. Leslie is here. Hey, Leslie. There is an app in Adobe Audition called Podcast Enhance that has some great adjustments for background noise. Dwight says, I have 128 gigabytes of RAM. I think I'm okay for now. I think I have 256. Got you beat. 18 cores. Leslie says that app is in the Adobe CC, by the way. Dylan says, probably a dumb question. I like having nerdy knickknacks and tchotchkes in my workspace. Same. Not jam-packed, but just little pops of flair. Will that have noticeable impact on my sound quality? Mine don't. Mine don't. I mean, I think it's all going to depend on their proximity to you and like the path your voice is taking to the mic. You know what I mean? It's going to depend on where they are in relation to you and your microphone, I think, ultimately. They don't affect mine at all. Jim says, I find that in editing in Audition, I can expand the signal in the screen and take out the spike. Well, there you go. Adobe updates its software, and I just let it. Becca Sue says, don't forget to like the video. Yes, for all of you watching, please like the video. If you're Team Replay, please consider subscribing. It does help my algorithms to help my content to be found by other people who are looking for it. And just remember, like, how you all found me in the first place was probably looking for some help, right, on a particular topic. So liking and subscribing will help the algorithm find more people to help them, entertain them at the very least, but, help them figure out where to go, what to do. Mia says, hi, I am super new to narration. Is it weird to just starting auditioning without a demo on ACX? Nope, not weird at all. We've all done it. Just be sure to use your auditions as samples, or if you're referring to that as a demo. You can make what you've already done do double duty. So if you've made an audition, now it's a sample, right? It's an audition and a sample. We've all done it that way. Not weird at all. Completely normal. Lorna says, recording videos for channels with slides, Canva, then edit audio if needed. Oh, I see. I gotcha. Jim says, gotta go and eat lunch. Enjoy your lunch. Caesar says, don't forget to lash that smike button. Are you drinking, Caesar? All right, y'all, I'm going to head out. I've got audiobooks. I've got stuff to do. But if there is something like a burning question, or if there's something that you want to talk about as a group, something you want to know more about, then please put that in the comments, and that could potentially be a subject for a future live discussion. Don't forget to like and hit the subscribe button and the little bell that notifies you of any time I'm online, all of that fun stuff. But I will be here next Tuesday, same time, same bat time, same bat channel. And until then, keep auditioning and play with those effects racks. Don't be afraid to play with that stuff, right? Anywho, I'm just blabbering, but I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to Sheelancer Mom Entrepreneur with VoiceOver Angela. That's me. For more information about me, visit my website, voiceoverangela.com, or hop on over to my YouTube channel, VoiceOver Angela. Again, thanks for listening. Have a great day.